For more now on those ridiculous racism comments peddled by Teal Zali Steggall, I'm joined by Liberal MP Andrew Wallace. Andrew, thank you so much for joining me this evening. Why is raising concerns about national security now apparently racist?
Well, of course it's not, Danica, and those comments were disgraceful. Very disappointing, I have to say, and really reflects more on the member for Warringah than anybody else. No one could doubt Peter Dutton's support for the security of our nation. He's held portfolios like Immigration Minister, Home Affairs Minister, and now Leader of the Opposition. He's been a policeman. He has spent essentially his entire working life trying to keep Australians safe. Now, if some people on the left side of politics want to introduce that sort of inflammatory language, I think that's unwise, and I certainly think it's unfortunate. But it says more about their argument when someone like Peter Dutton or anybody else on our side of the House believes and sticks up for the rights of Australians to be safe, because that's basically what we're talking about. Ultimately, we know that more than 50% of people who live in Gaza support Hamas. More than 50% who live in Gaza, and 50% of people who live in Gaza, also think that the actions of Hamas on October the 7th were correct. Now, I've been there. I've seen the kibbutzim. I've seen the bullet hole-ridden buildings, the destroyed buildings. I've seen them entirely looted. We have to ask ourselves the question whether the people that came from that area should be able to be entitled to come to Australia on tourist visas with insufficient security checks, because that is exactly what has happened. Don't believe what you hear or what the Prime Minister would have you believe and has said in question time. What he said in question time when he verbaled the Director General of ASIO was fundamentally false. He was false by his omission of certain words that Mike Burgess had said. And I think it's pretty poor where the Prime Minister is trying to duck for cover behind falsely verballing Mike Burgess.
Absolutely. And, you know, it is not racist to be worried about national security. It's not racist to ask genuine questions that, you know, have an impact on our society. And I've got to ask, you know, how much of this is politics? I mean, Jason Clare arced up today accusing Peter Dutton of being Pauline Hanson without the personality. Now, let's not forget Jason Clare is in a seat with a high Muslim population, of course, Blaxland in southwest Sydney. I mean, is this the lines Labor are using for their own political gain?
Well, I think what we're seeing is a Labor Party that is in desperate days. We've seen the Prime Minister this week really flailing about. He looks like someone who's really struggling, like someone who's drowning almost. It was very disappointing to hear those sort of comments that are coming from the Labor Party. But, I mean, really, I can't say I'm at all surprised.
What would the coalition support in any form when it comes to the Gazan visa situation? Is it a face-to-face interview? I mean, what would you expect?
Well, really nothing more than what we would see from any group of people that are coming from a war-torn area. That's why Peter Dutton was right to point out that he thinks that there should be a pause until appropriate checks can be done, face-to-face checks in country or in a third country, if that is the case, like what happened in Syria a number of years ago. Though the refugees that were coming out of Syria were removed to a third-party country where appropriate checks could be done by Australian officials face-to-face, appropriate ASIO checks could be done. We can't be in a situation where people are coming from a war-torn area that support a listed terrorist organisation in this country and support what that terrorist organisation did, namely the slaughter of 1,200 innocent Israelis, the taking hostage of 251 people. More than 115 are still being held in caves and tunnels in Gaza. We can't simply, I mean, it's almost beggars belief that we would even be entertaining bringing people in from that area without having done the appropriate security checks. But under Andrew Giles, the former immigration minister, that is exactly what's happened. Yeah,
I mean, we can hardly be surprised, but you're absolutely right. And in the end, if the neighbouring countries over there are not willing to accept these people, why should we be, have any consolation that we should bring them here to Australia? Andrew Wallace, good to have you on. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Danica.